Now with cold weather right around the corner, this is the perfect opportunity for me to bust out the soup, stews, and braised dishes that everybody loves this time of year. Today we're gonna make the ultimate chicken soup, just how my mom makes it. It's got tons of herbs and veggies, lots of chicken. It's perfect for a nice cold day like it is today. I know you guys are gonna love it, so without further ado, let's get to cooking. Okay, so we're gonna start with a big 16-quart stock pot. The bigger the pot, the better when you're making soup. I'm gonna start with a little bit of olive oil in the pan, maybe about 3 or 4 tablespoons of olive oil, just a nice layer. And then once the oil is hot, we're gonna add some diced onions. Season the onion with just a little bit of salt and black pepper. So after about 5 minutes or so, once the onions are slightly caramelized, we're gonna add about 6 cloves of garlic. Now it doesn't take long, after about 30 seconds or so, just as you begin to smell the garlic, we're gonna add 1 can of cream of chicken soup. Now this is optional, but my mom uses it, so I've been putting it in my soups. It just adds a little bit of extra flavor, a little bit more saltiness, some creaminess to your soup. We're gonna go ahead and stir this in for about a minute, and then we're gonna add the chicken stock. Really, you just want the stock to cover all the ingredients, but I like to start with a little bit of stock before I add all the vegetables and chicken, just so I don't overflow the pot. Now what I have here is a whole chicken. We're just gonna go ahead and drop it right in. I like the whole chicken because it gives you some of that breast meat, gives you some dark meat, so it just gives you a little more variety of flavor in your soup. And then once this chicken is cooked, we're gonna pull that meat apart anyways and mix it all in. Now we're gonna add 1 can of whole tomatoes, 3 russet potatoes, a bunch of carrots, some celery. I like to add the vegetables whole because if you add them cut up, they're gonna break down, it's gonna turn into mush. By doing it this way, you can cook the vegetables whole and then cut them up later on once the soup is done. We're gonna add 1 whole onion. That onion we used at the beginning is gonna be basically disintegrated into the soup. So I like to have a little bit of slices of onion or a little bit of pieces of onion in the soup. So 1 whole onion, it'll stay together and then we can break it up later on as well. 1 whole bunch of parsley, some thyme, and a few bay leaves. Now we're gonna add some more chicken stock until the vegetables and the chicken are completely covered. Now you could use water if you want. You know, that's just how you traditionally would make a stock. I find that by using the chicken stock, it gives it extra flavor, you know, and then by the time this boils for a couple hours, it's gonna be a super rich soup. All right, so that was about 20 cups of chicken stock. Another thing, if you don't use chicken stock, you might wanna use a little bit of chicken bouillon to get that saltiness that you need in most chicken soup recipes. Now this is very simple. We're just gonna bring this to a gentle simmer, and we're gonna let this cook for about 2 hours or so, or until our chicken is cooked, our vegetables are nice and soft, and then I'm gonna show you what to do with all these vegetables once our soup is done. So our soup's been simmering for 2.5 hours. I just turned the heat off so there's not so much steam in the camera. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna remove the chicken and all the vegetables. And as you can see, our carrots and our celery are still together. The onion's falling apart a little bit. We're just gonna go ahead and move it onto this tray. Our chicken's just beginning to fall apart, so we're gonna remove it and go ahead and place it into the pan here. Don't wanna overcook the soup. If you go any longer than about 2.5 hours or so, everything's gonna fall apart. It's gonna be like mush. You're not gonna be able to get it out. You're not gonna be able to separate it, cut it up, and put it back in the soup. So I find that around 2 hours or so is a good place to stop, and then we're gonna go ahead and boil our noodles in this broth. So now that our broth has been strained, here's all the vegetables and chicken that we used to make the stock. Now when you go to serve this, if my mom was doing it, she would have the chicken, the vegetables, and the soup with the noodles all separate and laid out on the table, so you can go get a ladle of soup, a little bit of vegetables, some chicken, or whatever you wanted. I like the idea of deboning the chicken, removing all the stems from the herbs, and then cutting up the vegetables, adding it back to the soup, and that way when you ladle it into the bowl, you get a little bit of vegetables and chicken and noodles. It's just a little bit easier that way. But nonetheless, you can either do it all on the side or you can mix it all together. So what you're gonna wanna do now is taste the broth, and that way you can season it with a little more salt and pepper so that somebody doesn't have to put as much salt and pepper or cheese in there after they get their bowl of soup. It's pretty good. It needs a little bit more salt and pepper, just a little bit. So now we're gonna bring the broth back up to a boil so we can make our orzo. We're gonna add about 1/2 pound to 1 pound here of our noodles, and these will take around 9 minutes or so to cook. Keep in mind though, if you add a lot of noodles, it's gonna suck up a lot of your broth, so you gotta be careful. You know, you gotta eyeball this after you do it for a few times. You know how many noodles you could put into the broth, but you still wanna have a soup. You don't wanna have a pasta. So another option too, if you don't wanna use the orzo, you can use ancini di pepe or pastina, works good. Some people use rice. I like it with rice personally. Or you don't have to use any noodles at all. You could just eat it straight with the vegetables and the chicken. However you prefer to eat it will be just fine with this soup. All right, so the orzo is done. Now we're gonna go ahead and add in all the vegetables and chicken that we just shredded up. We're gonna add it right into the soup. Give it a quick mix here. Look at that, look how hearty that looks. That looks amazing. And that's pretty much all there is to it. We're just gonna go ahead and mix this up, fix ourselves a bowl, and give it a taste. It goes perfect with calzones or garlic bread, I'll tell you that.
Who wants a chicken noodle soup and a calzone?
Dude, you're not Italian, that's why. We're gonna add some freshly cracked black pepper, a little bit of pecorino cheese, and there it is. Let's go ahead and give it a taste. This soup is guaranteed to hit the spot, especially on a cold day like today. It's very, very rich. It's got tons of heartiness from the potatoes and the chicken. It's got that sweetness from the carrots, a little bit of garlic flavor. If you want to take this up to the next level, highly recommend adding a little bit of chicken bouillon, but watch the salt though. If you add the chicken bouillon, it'll add a little bit of roundness to the flavors. It'll kind of bring it all together a little bit. I just didn't have any, so I didn't add it. But if you do use bouillon, kind of dial back the salt a little bit or be careful with it. Anyways, give this soup a try the next time you're craving soup or on a nice cold day. If you guys enjoyed this video or you learned something, give me a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.